This is not about being exposed to physical harm or emotional trauma, but this is about finding resonance pockets where we can all be very, very comfortable and believe that the whole world behaves so, and if somebody else is not behaving so, then they're against us. So it is the duality that is being perpetuated. As Daniel Kahneman has very rightly pointed out, education is the capacity to change what we believe. And if you want to change what we believe, we should expose ourselves to other opinions. Obviously, we should value them, we should weigh them and discard them as need be. But let's make sure that by safety, we do not mean we get stuck in cultural echo chambers. So this CDF Youth Dialogue platform is a wonderful way to begin. I'm reminded of the 3,000-year-old Rigvedic hymn, which goes Sangachatvam, Sambadatvam, Samvo Mana Vijanati, which means let's walk together, let's listen to each other, and then by that, let's come to understand what's in each other's mind. So this is a wonderful initiative where you have brought together people from engineering, law, and the other branches. We will have very distinct ideas about these things. So I'm looking forward to hearing this, and from the judges and the keynote speakers. So thank you so much for having this. And I think such a speech about social media should be concluded by saying, please do like and subscribe this video when you get a chance. So thank you so much.
Thank you for setting the tone for the event, Dr. Arun. Now, with great pleasure, I introduce our second keynote speaker, Ms. Wong Lai-Chin. Ms. Wong is a manager at Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization, Regional Center for Education in Science and Mathematics, based in Penang, Malaysia. As co-founder of Media and Information Literacy for the ASEAN Network, Ms. Wong aims to equip teachers with the ability to integrate media information literacy across curriculum and to improve the community's resilience to misinformation and disinformation in the Southeast Asian region. Ms. Wong was selected for the Japan Young Leaders Program by Japan International Cooperation Agency in 2013 and US Department of State Professional Fellows Program in 2015. Ms. Wong, we're delighted to have you at CDF Youth Dialogue Forum. Please.
Thank you for the introduction, Ms. Dini. Allow me to share my screen. All right, thank you. And thank you for the brief introduction. Good morning to all the honorable officials from the CDF, esteemed speakers and juries, participants joining us online in this very important event. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you from Penang, Malaysia. I hope I'll be able to cover everything within 10 minutes time. All right, so I want to start my remarks with a very positive note. All right, despite the life-changing effects of the COVID pandemic, we, the people in Asia, remains resilient with the challenges posed by this situation. Proof to this is the continued focus on developing new ways to communicate with each other and to promote learning continuity such as digital literacy skills. The CDF has organized this very important event to provide dialogue, discussion on good practices, as well as unique collaborative problem-solving approaches to address these common issues that we face in this social media world today. We are in this together. Take a look at this chart. All right, so if you can see, this is what happens in an internet minute. 69 million messages were sent via Facebook and WhatsApp messengers, and more than 500 hours of content was uploaded on YouTube, and 695,000 of stories were shared on Instagram. So what does this data actually tells us? The digital world is a universe in its own right, and a very fast-moving one at that. All right. So next, and look at this. Look at this graph. Look, hundreds of millions of emails were sent. Millions of people log into Facebook, and this is in every minute around the world. Speaking for myself, who is not that old, all right, none of this actually existed when I was in the secondary school, all right. And I only have my first email address when I entered the university, and that was not long ago. I mean, that was like 15 15 years ago. Next, let's talk a little bit about the context in Malaysia, my country. We have a total population of 32.57 million people, but we have almost 40 million of mobile connections. 84% of the population actually uses internet connection. And this data, you can see that our populations are actually spending more than 9 hours a day on the internet, and 3 hours are actually spent on the social media. In Malaysia, social media platform is widely used source of information, particularly during the pandemic. Why so? Because it's easy to access, it's not expensive, and it can cater to a large number of registered users. The social media platform is actually one of the favorite platform of our young learners, which we call it as the youth. However, we have to bear in mind that the social media has advantages, but it also offers disadvantages. Information that we receive is actually the basic for civic engagement and action. For example, from the information that we receive, we decide which political party to vote for, we decide which type of vaccines that we want to take. Social media has a great advantage of rapid dissemination of information in the COVID era, or even during the natural disasters times, like sharing rapid dissemination of protocols in the national, regional, international levels, which include sharing of information related to treatment, personal protection and equipment, and how new development about vaccines can be shared on the social media. All right, and while social media has a great advantage in providing health information and learning resources, there are also concerns and constraints that may lead to harm if this information are not well checked. All right, so this is why misinformation is a big problem that we face in the digital world today. So what are we going to do to improve the safety of digital environments, addressing harmful and misleading media while protecting our netizens? So we must be able to decide what kind of accurate information is and what are the fake news and false information that can be alarming, all right, or maybe accelerating the situation that may cause fear, stress, depression, anxiety, or even mental health issues, or sometimes it can be even more extreme cases where it encourages people to take dangerous actions like suicide. So let me use an example from the United States, where during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a lot of misinformation about the novel coronavirus. I think many of you would have heard about it, that has actually led to racism and xenophobic attacks that were targeted on Asians in the United States, right? So dealing with misinformation has become one of the biggest challenges faced by many of us. And there are actually 3 types of information disorder, which I would like to share here today, where we have misinformation, means it is a false information, it's present, but there is no harm is intended. This information is false information which knowingly shared to cause harm. You know it's fake, but yet you still want to share it. Whereby malinformation is a genuine information where it's shared to cause harm on other people. All right, so there are these 3 types of information that I would like to share with all of you. So rumors and conspiracy theories are making rounds in the digital environment, which has heightened public confusion. I truly agree with what Dr. Arun has mentioned earlier, that we have overwhelming information, and what's important here is you need to do a deep research, all right, before you actually shares the content. You know, it's important for everyone to learn to recognize how false information are manipulating our emotions. So in Malaysia, we are also witnessing a dramatic increase in access to social media and information, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, in March, our Secretary General of United Nations tweeted that our most common enemy is COVID-19, but our enemy is also the infodemic of misinformation on his Twitter account. So that means in this digital era, digital literacy is essential for our citizens. Let me share with you a quick one of a graph of young people in ASEAN, how they perceive information, their digital literacy skills. In ASEAN, most of our young people, or I call it the youth, they rate themselves having moderate level of digital literacy. So what's important of having digital literacy? Our youth are all digital citizens. I hope all of you agree. I think we have a lot of youth in this event today. They are born in this environment and they trust this environment. So we should empower youth to how to critically evaluate information, process verification, and learn to access credible sources and ethical responsible use of social media. So why is it important to be digital literate for our young generations? It's important because if you're digitally literate, we can browse, search, and find information quickly. You can communicate and collaborate with your peers. You can create digital content, and most importantly, you can solve problems quickly and effectively, and at the same time, you learn how to protect yourself. So having a strong foundation of digital literacy skills means having a critical thinking ability. So in Malaysia, there are, or in ASEAN, there's a lot of initiatives that we do to actually empower public to be smart users in the social media. So what can be done is to have teach our students how to do fact checking in schools. Digital literacy campaigns to guide netizens to critically analyze information on social media for accuracy and credibility. All right, that's very important. At the same time, transparency law enforcement, that's equally important to make social media users aware of where content comes from and which entity is supporting the production or publication of that content. So law targeting disinformation to make it difficult for disinformation actors to push content through fake and dummy accounts, that's important. We should also use the existing law on defamation, harassment, fraud, damages from intent to cause harm against those behind disinformation campaign. All right, these are some of the efforts that it's been practiced in ASEAN. So I think many of you would have heard of this Philippines Nobel Prize winner, Maria Ressa. She believed, I truly believe in her wisdom, because you cannot understand what's really happening in the world if you don't know what information to trust and which information is accurate. All right. So, and with that, thank you very much for having me today. Feel free to follow our Facebook page and LinkedIn page for more updates and our upcoming events. I invite all of you to join our upcoming webinar on digital citizenship through safe and responsible internet use, which will be held in collaboration with Google and DKU Institute on 10th of February in conjunction with the Global Safer Internet Day. And finally, allow me to congratulate the organizers for your hard work and for successfully organizing this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. Thank you. That was a very quick glance into the misinformation ecosystem. I really appreciate that. It is now time to introduce our esteemed jury of 5 subject matter experts from various parts of the world. First up, Mr. Lucas Caiado. Lucas is a lawyer and professor from Brazil and presently practices in South Korea. He is managing partner at Caiado Seccarelli Advogados and legal consultant at the Green Climate Fund. He has worked in prominent law firms in Sao Paulo, London, and Washington in areas of internal investigations, public policy implementation, and public-private partnerships. He is a law graduate from University of Sao Paulo, completed Master of Law from University of Cambridge, and did his LLM from Columbia Law School. I extend a very warm welcome to you, Lucas.
Thank you. Thank you, Eid. Hello, everyone.
Our second jury member is Ms. Lata Nair. With over 24 years experience in the IT industry, Lata heads the delivery unit of the consulting and digital transformation business for IBS Software in Technopark, India. She leads a 700 plus team at IBS to implement collaborative practices like Agile, DevOps, automation with emerging technologies, and toolkits to achieve productivity, quality, and capability goals for a global clientele. Lata graduated in electrical and electronics engineering from College of Engineering, Trivandrum, and did her postgraduate from BITS Pilani. Welcome to CDF Youth Dialogue Forum, Lata.
Thank you, Nidhi. Hello, everyone.
Our third jury member is Mr. Srijan Balakrishnan. Srijan is Associate Editor with the New Indian Express in Trivandrum, Kerala, with 22 years experience in Malayalam and English print journalism. He has worked with Malayalam Manorama and the Times of India before returning for a second stint at the New Indian Express. Srijan has been credited with breaking exclusive reports like the chemical examination tampering report of Sister Abhaya murder case, for which he won the prestigious V. Krishnamurti Award and C.V. Papachan Award. His academic contribution led to a revamp of Kerala University's communication and journalism syllabus. Honored to have you with us, Srijan.
Hello. Have a good day for all participants.
Our fourth jury member is Ms. Hamida Parkar. Hamida is a supervisor, leader, coach, therapist, and registered social worker focused on advocacy and social justice. She leads the onboarding and training, coaching, and supervision of volunteering and paid crisis supporters, supervisors, and team leaders who deliver 24-hour crisis support and suicide prevention services to people in immediate distress. As a therapist, Hamida provides individual counseling and support to clients through anxiety, depression, and trauma. Happy to have you on CDF Youth Dialogue Forum, Hamida.
Good to see everyone. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Our fifth and final jury member is Ms. Hema Ramaprasad, who also represents Citizen Digital Foundation on the jury today. Hema is a senior independent journalist, writer, and digital content specialist, and works as product consultant for Citizen Digital Foundation. Over the last 2 decades, she has worked with media companies like Star TV and Yahoo in content creation and production. As a journalist, Hema has published her work in The Guardian, CNN, Vice, Scroll, National Geographic Traveler India, and more. Welcome to CDF Youth Dialogue Forum, Hema.
Thank you, Nidhi. Hello, everyone.
Now let me introduce our brilliant moderator for today's debate, Ms. Shakti Swaminathan. Shakti started her career as a journalist with The Hindu and later moved on to academia, her true passion. The Times of India has quoted Shakti as one of the coolest college teachers in Bangalore. A former gold medalist in sociology and recipient of the Best Journalist Award from MOP Vaishnav College, Chennai, Shakti went on to teach in the departments of journalism and public policy at Mount Carmel College, Bangalore for 10 years. Her research focuses on the youth, social media, and their political motivations. Shakti also writes for various publications, including The Hindu and New Indian Express, Scroll, and the News Minute. We're excited to have you moderate CDF Youth Dialogue Forum, Shakti. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Nidhi. Good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing well. So let's start off then. Let me start with a little bit of word association. Now, when we think of the word debate, the first thing that often comes to our mind, unfortunately these days, I think I can speak for all of us here, is television news channels, where debates have descended into complete cacophony, complete lack of content, where they seem to be more squabbling and less listening. And the person who seems to be the loudest and who can drown out everyone in the room becomes the winner. And this is true of even social media, I would say, where people, including us, have arguments which escalate, or debates which escalate into, vicious trolling and abuse. And at this point, when we look at all this, I'm sure all of us feel or have felt at some point extremely disillusioned, because you've started dreading the word debate, for one. And you also think that they've become pointless. What is the point? They are mere shouting matches where people are just shouting at each other, are refusing to listen to each other, and nothing constructive ever comes out. And but at the same time, you also know that debates are the bedrock of any democracy. And how does a democracy such as ours, which is the biggest in the world right now, thrive if there is no healthy collaboration of ideas, where people are not listening to each other, and we are averse to various perspectives? And this is at many levels extremely disillusioning. But what is also heartening to see at this point is that a lot of us have realized that, are acknowledging the fact that debates have to be reclaimed. We need to redefine debates, and we have to bring in something constructive to this world. And I think more than all of us, I think the current generation is the one which is realizing that more. Sometimes we don't give them as much credit as they deserve, I feel. But having taught the young for a long time, I think I feel they have a much difficult world out there. When I grew up and studied, I did not have to face the pressures of social media, for instance. I did not have a smartphone, so I could concentrate on my studies, or I could do other things without, having information constantly, being bombarded by information constantly, or having a social media presence, or having to navigate all this. And yet we see that today's youngsters now, I know it's a cliche to say that they are the future of the world and all that. Of course, they are the future of the world, but I think they are also having it much difficult. They've lived through a pandemic. I mean, they're studying during a pandemic where classes are largely online. They have so many social media platforms to deal with, so many mental health issues to deal with. A lot is happening. So at this juncture, it is really heartening also to see that CDF, the CDF has come up with this virtual debate where they brought in 4 students from 4 different streams of law, management, journalism, and engineering to discuss a very pertinent topic, which is how social media is an integral component of culture. We cannot do without it. It's here to stay. But how are we going to navigate the pressures of social media? How are we going to make it a safe space for all? It's a very pertinent topic, and who better than the young generation to discuss that, who are not only going to discuss it, but also going to arrive at some sort of solution. Like, how are we going to make it a safe space? So we have 4 students here with us today, right? And I would like to introduce them. Now, first, we have Vasu V. Mathur, who is a BCom student from Christ University in Bangalore. Vasu is currently pursuing his BCom degree. He loves playing basketball, watches movies. He'll watch anything except horror. And he also enjoys meeting new people. Welcome, Vasu. He represents us from the management section. We have Divyanshu Dembi, who is pursuing law at the OP Jindal Law School in Haryana. He is a physics graduate turned law student. He's deeply interested in the intersections of law, technology, and economics. In his free time, he likes to listen to podcasts, read books, and endlessly scroll Twitter. Third, we have, welcome Divyanshu. Third, we have Amrita GS, who is an engineering student, an electronics and electrical engineering student from Trinity College of Engineering in Trivandrum. She describes herself as an extrovert. She likes to interact with others and getting along with other communities. She also loves to explore and travel, to read, to listen to music, and spend time with her siblings. And last but not the least, we have Akansha Birada, who is a journalism, political science, and economics student from Mount Carmel College, Bangalore. She says everything is debatable and everything is political. As a student of journalism, she's inclined towards print media and especially fond of human interest stories. She also likes to read and improve her photography skills. So welcome, Akanksha. Welcome to all 4 of you. Now, students, I hope you've gone through the format of the debate. As I mentioned, the topic is social media is an integral part of your culture. So how do we make it a safe space for all? And you will be given 2 minutes each to express your point of view or your solution as to how to make it a safe space. After each of you, we go through each of your perspectives. It'll be a free-flowing debate where you can question each other and have counter arguments and talk about each other's perspective. Now, the key is, of course, to not only articulate what your opinion is, but to also listen to the others, listen to all the diverse perspectives, and arrive at a collaborative and a constructive solution. So what we call as SMART, something which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And you will be evaluated on the basis of your creativity, your critical thinking skills, as well as your problem solving abilities, right? So as I mentioned earlier, the key is to sort of come up with a solution and not just discuss what are the pitfalls of technology or social media for that matter, but arrive at a constructive solution is how do we make it a safe space for all. I'm sure nobody's better than y'all to do this for us, who are the original digital natives. So anyway, so let's, I think we can go ahead with the debate with the first person. Vasu, are you here?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi. Can we, so you have 2 minutes, Vasu, and when you have 30 seconds left, I'll just raise my hand so that you will know it's time to wind up. All right?
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So hey everyone, I'm Vasu and I will be attempting to give out a solution to make social media safer. To start with, I just want to say that there are 3 stakeholders in any social media platform, the most important ones. One is the user, and one is the platform in of itself. And the third one are the advertisers, and the one that we don't usually see. And so right now, the goals of users are to be in control, not only of their data, but of their time and their tool as well. And they want better, maybe non-divisive content to be promoted by the algorithms, which are the main 2 goals that I see as of now. For the platform, the goal is to increase revenue, obviously, and to have scalability, as in to build users without having a lot of issues with capital insertion and stuff like that. Also, which is a recent goal, is goodwill, right? Because they've come under so much fire by the users and even by the authorities, is that they're really looking for a way to change their functioning to have more goodwill, right? And advertisers is very simple. I feel it's just the most people they can target at the absolute least cost. So right now, very clearly, the advertisers' needs are being fulfilled. Platforms are partially succeeding because they don't have goodwill, and users are completely, their goals are not being filled. Okay, cool. So now the solution I have is to pivot into an e-commerce field, because when I'm pivoting into an e-commerce field, I'm using my biggest digital assets. I'm using data, I'm using my digital infrastructure. And now that I don't depend on users having more engagement, I don't have to promote divisive content, promote polarizing content. And my goal as a social media becomes just to connect people. And now I have a counter, part to my business where I've entered into the e-commerce field. And so now, I can use the data produced by my social media to provide better predictions. And as an e-commerce giant, the most important thing is to have both users and advertisers at the same time. That's a big constraint that e-commerce people have. And so right now, I think social media platforms are in the absolute best position because they have a very ready set of users and advertisers that they just have to meet. And now that this happens, the choice is given back to the users. Now social media can be used for whatever by the users because the revenue of Facebook or social media platform, is coming from somewhere else. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Vasu. Can we move on to Divyanshu now? Are you here?
Hi, I hope I'm audible and visible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So should I start?
Yes, you can start.
Absolutely. So I think my first thoughts, as I also expressed in an earlier video, were that we're living in an era in humanity which the difference between what is real and what is virtual is increasingly blurring, which is why it's even more important to understand what is the future that we as a civilization are working towards. And the reason why we need to understand that is because if you're going to move into what a lot of people call the metaverse, we are going to become, as ma'am had said, digital natives, which a lot of us already are, with the countless hours that we spend online. We need to understand what are the challenges that are stopping us from making it into a safe space. Of course, we need to first understand what do we mean by safe space. And I think a simplistic definition of that is a space in which individuals feel empowered to post, talk about, and listen to what they want to talk and listen about, and do not feel threatened, which is to say, a lot of people, and specifically women, and I think the women on this panel can tell us more about that because of their specific lived experience as to how a lot of women feel unsafe on the internet. It is not just about women, a lot of other identities as well. So the idea is to understand how do we incorporate and make a structure through various laws, regulations, and just goodwill. We make internet into a place that is inclusive in its core. And I think that the kind of problem statement, there are multiple problem statements, but the one that I'd like to focus on is as I think one of our keynote speakers had also talked about, which is the problem of misinformation and disinformation. And secondly, I think the problem of big tech. I think as a democracy, we need to understand two things. First is that all social media should respect people's right to privacy. They should have that in their infrastructure. And secondly, as state, we should regulate big tech to make sure that they do not abuse their dominance and make, say, polarization something that is mainstream, because we think both of these things need and is a sufficient and necessary condition for a good democratic outcome.
All right. Thank you, Divyanshu. Can I have Amrita now?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Good morning, all. Very happy to be a part of this CDF. Anyway, topic really depicts it's safe for all who are using correct way. Social media is one of the biggest platform to communicate, exhibit, and explore our ideas, etc. In fact, studies suggest that half of the children nowadays are using social media in their daily life, because during this pandemic situation, also online classes, etc., are going on through these online platforms, and they are widely using social media platforms. If we are using in a correct way, then it will be more benefit for the students to explore, explore their ideas, then exhibit and promote their ideas through these online platforms. As a recently observed fact, mainly social media has an important role in everyday life as means of in the profession. In all professions, we have also a fast approach of news sources all around the world in a single click. Then also, when we come to the point of social media, from a time when an old school telegraph was considered as a hot medium, establishing communication, then nowadays it is going to Facebook, also going to be a major trend, and mind reading device. These are the computer-based technology. So when coming to my field, engineering, technology plays a major role in the social media concept, an ever-changing and ever-evolving field. So power of social media means the ability to connect, share information with everyone on the earth through a single click. So I think it is safe when we use it correctly and properly. It will be safe for all, by all means. Also, I think that social marketing, then through business, we are very fast approaching through the social media, through Facebook ads, such as Facebook ads, then Instagram ads, etc. So it is very safe when we use it correctly, use in a correct form, or etc. Typically, features of this user-generated content and personal profiles are mainly on this social media platform. According to my concept, so nowadays it plays a major role in our generation culture, and it is safe up to the extent when we connect correctly and use it safe up to our. Thank you.
I think Akansha, you can take over.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes,
properly. Social media gives me immediacy, direction, and uncensored commentary on sexism. Greetings to the dignitaries, jury, and fellow participants. I'm Akansha Biradar, and right now I may take this opportunity to read out a few DMs that have thoroughly upset me, and also partake and discuss a solution that may finally cure the unsafe environment of social media. I belong to a generation that deals with their generational trauma by sharing or oversharing it on Instagram stories or retweeting it. Our curiosity and the need to know the latest trends in fashion, best-selling books, latest and oldest dramas of TV and YouTube, and the newest update on the current affair can only be satisfied by the quickness and the vastness of social media. Of course, it provides impeccable interaction and conversations. I've read numerous case studies, analysis, explanations, and multi-dimensional interaction that made it important for me to know that acknowledge and understanding opinions is important, but listening to others is equally more important. However, this exposure comes with blatant slander, cancel culture, discrimination, and prejudice. We often think out loud, did no one teach you the basic decency? Is this how you converse with a human being on social media? Just because you have the platform, you speak anything and get away with it. Now, here are a few stats. World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts shared that the result of a survey conducted in 2020 revealed that out of 14,000 women, 52% of these young women experience online abusing such as slut shaming, body shaming, misogyny, receiving nudes, and unabashed moral policing. And out of these 14,000 women, 87% think that this problem is only getting worse regardless of the laws and the rules on the social media and in the government system that is provided. Brian Masturini is a health and science journalist. According to his reports, 52% of LGBTQ youth faced digital harassment in 2020. And in India, only 42% of such harassment is only ever discussed and not reported at all. Now, these are the stats that have only come forward. How many of these cases go unreported? As a journalism student, I must remain active and aware of the current affairs, changing politics, and every societal sentiment that provides a platform ideology. Social media catalyze the population and the popularity of citizen and explanatory journalism. And I cannot help but feel that this has diluted the quality of journalism. I am afraid as I watch the same citizen verbally abuse these journalists. Neha Dikshit, Rana Ayub, and Maya Mirchandani talked about the abuse they face on social media, receiving hundreds of threats, blocking thousands of Twitter accounts, and being a victim of image phishing in sexual abuse, respectively. All these instances are very familiar to me, honestly. This is just an ignorance towards consent, violation of freedom of expression, and hate crime, discrimination, and so on and so forth. The same questions rings in my head again. Did no one teach you about basic decency? I've spent quite a few days procrastinating and the rest of the days thinking about what could be a possible solution to create a safe environment on social media. Because every person is different and so is every opinion. This debate is the witness of it. So we are aware that everyone is different and so are our opinions. But respecting these differences makes a huge difference, I think. I revisited the syllabus of information technology, computer science, and social studies of our schools. None of these subjects, and I mean none of these subjects or any other, provide a small glance at these subjects such as consent, sex education, or what is bullying. The behavior of any person is the reflection of the environment they were brought up in. We teach boys that they must remain sexual beings and that sex is granted to them. We teach girls that they should remain a size 4 and shy. We are asked to learn about the UTHR without understanding its importance, and but with each day, Article 2 of UTHR only becomes important and relevant and ignored. Education institutions influences the most, I believe. Hence, I believe that altering the textbooks, serious and honest counseling sessions that include embracing the influence of social media on us rather than just blaming it as a problem that it creates in our life could be a possible solution to create a safe space. When we acknowledge and encourage conversations in schools and homes, we get to understand what a person truly thinks. We need to understand that why does a person think it is okay for them to slander another person? Why is your ideology so important that you are going to ignore the freedom of expression and speech? I think as as Dr. Arun Surendra very pointedly and very correctly noted that education does make a change. And in his speech, I agree with that point the most, that if we are going to assess these parts of our life and change the schools and the way we teach our children about social media, it could create a big difference. Social media was never the problem, in my opinion. Our solutions, which begin on the sites and how to repair those sites, are the problem. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Akanksha. I'm so sorry. I had a little bit of internet issue, so that's why I disappeared in the middle. Sorry, I'm back now. All right, thank you all four of you. So now we will, to put it in a nutshell, I think we have Vasu said that he believes that social media is to become an e-commerce. Just for clarification, Vasu, did you mean that social media must become paid? Is that what you're implying? That
No, I'll just try and clarify. I believe that social media should advertisers shouldn't be allowed on social media anymore, and those advertisers should be transferred to an e-commerce platform where it'll think of something like Amazon maybe, or Facebook Marketplace, which has already happened, stuff like that. And advertisers should not be allowed on social media anymore because that makes the algorithm try and get users to stay online more, and that leads to problematic content and its promotion. So I think instead of solving the symptoms like divisive content, body dysmorphia, stuff like that, those are just the symptoms of this business model. And so if suppose Facebook's primary economic aim is not to get us to stay online anymore, then a lot of these problems, with of course supplemented by user empowerment and algorithm transparency and stuff, will to a certain extent go away.
all right. So you're saying that advertisers should be kept out of social media, and that's how it remains safe. Divyanshu said that the right to privacy has to be built into the system, built into social media. Like how we have right to privacy as part of our constitution, it is something that needs to be built into social media. I hope I got your main point right. And Amrita, I'm sorry, I think I lost you in the middle because I left. So in a nutshell, could you just, what was your solution? Could you just tell us?
Yeah, I think it's safe for all who are using it correctly. Then major advantages is this digital marketing, then social marketing sites, then e-commerce mainly. I think that more beneficial one is this social marketing than e-commerce platforms. According to our current situation, that's pandemic situation, social media plays a major role in everyday.
Do you feel social media is already safe? You feel like there is nothing wrong with it? Like
it is unsafe in some conditions.
How do we make it safe then? In your opinion?
We can use strong password in, for example, Facebook or Instagram or etc. Strangers will be there. So we are focusing, we want to focus to create a strong password, and also some strangers will hack our account, etc. While creating the strong password, we will have to maintain a strong profile of our account. So for example, I mentioned that. Then
Okay, no, I just wanted to get clarity. And Akanksha believes that we can't blame the medium. Often, the education is important, that if we understand everything has its pitfalls and its problems. So it all depends on the users of how we use the media. So if we have conversations and we address that as people, then we will not have a problem with the medium. Right? So I hope I got your point right. So yes, now the floor is open to the four of you, where you are free to ask each other questions or, expand on your opinion as well. So the floor is yours now.
Hi, I'll just start this by saying that being a law student, I think a lot of analysis that I do personally of social media is through the legal lens. And I think one particular law that is problematic, to say the least, is Section 69 of the IT Act. Basically, the section says that it empowers the government to take down online content without telling the owner or the poster of that content why it was taken down. Which is to say, for example, if I posted something on Facebook, the government can take it down and I will never know why it was taken down. Now, Section 69 is an interesting story in the sense that it was also challenged in the landmark case of Shreya Singhal versus Union of India, the case in which we struck down Section 66A of the IT Act, which said that nuancing speech or speech that tended to create disturbance online was held to be punishable under the IT Act. The landmark case struck that provision down and unconstitutional because it violated our right to freedom of speech and expression under 19A. I mean, it's interesting because Section 69A was also challenged then, but the court did not go into the merits of the argument. Now, the problem that exists right now is that for the internet to be a safe space for all, we need to have the guarantee that our content will not be arbitrarily taken down, which is that our voices will be heard and be engaged with. Section 69 acts as a hindrance in that particular creation of a safe space ecosystem. And I think that the other thing that has come into, the other legal thing that has come into much debate lately were the IT rules of 2021. Now, what they did particularly badly was to again have a content takedown regime instituted into the rules, which was to say that now the government mandated all big tech, which they characterize over having, say, 50 lakh users, that if they wanted a content to be taken down, they had to take it down within 24 to 36 hours. And if they did not do that, they would take away something that is called the safe harbor provision, which is that the safe harbor provision is basically Section 79 of the IT Act, which states that the social media are not responsible for the content that the users post on the social media. That's actually the core of social media as we understand it. So I think that, like, not to take a lot of time, I think that the recent IT rules were also wrong in that aspect.
Yes, Akanksha, you can go ahead.
I do have a question for Vasu. I hope that's how you prefer. Okay. So Vasu, you did mention about changing the system to an ecosystem, like an e-commerce site, and you did quote the example of Facebook. Could you please clarify onto that, because I don't think I got it correctly?
Okay, cool. So basically what Facebook did was it did not take the advertisers out of its out of Facebook in of itself, which is a part of my solution, but it instituted something called Facebook Marketplace, where it's more of a consumer to consumer sort of website. So it's a little different from that model again. But what it's tried to do is it's tried to, make a different sort of website where in the app you can have another tab called Facebook Marketplace, and then you can transact with other users using that same thing.
Because I do remember AOC and Mark Zuckerberg on the Congress, in the Congress hearing, where we did talk about how Facebook just does not fact check advertisements. And a lot of these advertisements were political in their nature, and they were spreading misinformation, disinformation. And especially during the period of election, it was a very capitalistic venture that mooched off on viewerships. So even if we do shift that advertising sector to a different website where there is no guarantee that the CEO is aware of what is happening in his company, and second of all, where there is no assurance that whatever advertisement or the content you're coming across is fact checked, do you think this will be good in the long run? Especially to the generation such as ours, where we are gullible, where we really want to believe what we see because we want to be the first to know what is happening.
Okay, so I don't think Facebook as a platform is, I think we, to a certain extent, also have to be responsible in our use of platforms. And so if we come across something that might or might not be accurate, we should have the ability and the depth to check that out. And so when you're saying to move to another platform, what I mean when I say move to a new platform in terms of e-commerce is more like an Amazon point of view. So more products and more services to be sold there instead of impressions, right? So the whole problem with social media is that we're very susceptible to subliminal impressions, right? And so as we move to this new platform, those problems won't exist anymore because it'll all be made very clear, right? In this new platform, it'll all be made very clear as to what the advertiser is selling at what price. And, essentially what I really want is for the choice to be given back to the user. And so now if you're on a social media platform without any advertisements, how you use that social platform is completely up to you. And without the algorithms promoting certain harmful or divisive content, everything has an equal playing field. After which the user's responsibility kicks in, and he or she or they have to clarify on what they're seeing and whether or not they believe that that's true and what opinion they take.
I agree with your point. I agree with certain aspects of it. However, I do have a question for Amrita. Amrita, your solution talked about using the social media correctly and properly. Are you instigating that every one of us has to use it correctly and properly, that and some way we are not doing it? And I don't really understand how using a strong password could really create a safe platform for everyone, because very recently, Vikramaditya Sahai, who also is referred to as VQueer on Instagram, he had a strong password. He has a private account, but the kind of threats and abuse he received for using his freedom of expression and speech is very disheartening to see. And it is all based on caste and gender identity. So I don't really understand how creating a strong password is really going to help things. I don't agree with your point.
Ganesha, I had told it as an example, using a strong password, then strong password will be longer it is, the more secure it will be. Using a different password for each social media accounts, then setting up for security. And this option will be available for most social media sites. If we have social media apps on our phone, but sure, the password should be protect our device by use. I think so. Using a strong password, somewhat lengthy, then it will be more safe when compared to the commonly used.
Amrita, I think what even Akanksha is trying to ask you is that when we're talking about safety, we're not just talking about accounts being hacked or, this thing. So, but for example, on social media, when you engage with someone, it could lead to trolling and it could lead to abuse. You have people commenting on your things and, saying, where often leads to a lot of mental health issues as well. So in that kind of a situation where you are writing stuff or you are posting stuff out of your own volition, but you face, you are targeted, or there is hate speech, for example, in which case it makes you feel very unsafe in that platform. What do you do then? I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand, that that's one of the things that we're trying to discuss here. Yeah. So for example, Vasu is talking about how if we move, he's talking more from the perspective of data, like data theft and things being taken. So he says that sometimes when we are on Instagram or Facebook, we don't know that our data is being used. But instead, if we are told that, that here, there is a separate platform called Marketplace where you know that people are taking your information or you're surrendering your information, it's better, it's more transparent. So whereas Akansha is talking about things like abuse and trolling and so on, how do you feel safe then? Like, what do you do? How do you deal with it? Is, I think, her question, right? So if you could address any of these is also fine.
We have to adopt privacy settings. Otherwise, if it is largely emerging to an extent, then we can report a complaint, I think so. To that extent, strangers will normally forced to do such things like storing our identity by posting some vulgar comments, etc. I think so. In that condition, it is unsafe.
Okay.
I'd just like to jump in and talk about something that has been discussed a bit, which is the problem of hate speech online. Because I think, to me, the problem is not very simple, to say the least, which is to say that there's two countervailing interests associated with regulation of hate speech. One, of course, the legitimate interest that you don't want people to be harassed, you don't want people to be delegitimized, you don't want their identities to be eviscerated by people who are sitting behind a keyboard. But at the same time, you also need to make sure that you don't trample on people's legitimate right to freedom of speech. Now, the hate speech problem is a particularly nefarious one because there's no clear understanding as to when freedom of speech stops and when hate speech starts. And there are different methods to deal with hate speech internationally. So, for example, the two things I think we need to understand, or at least are important according to me, is to first note that most of the constitutional protections do not apply to private platforms because they're not within the definition of a state, which is to say that our right to freedom of speech, we cannot enforce it against, say, Zoom or Facebook or Instagram because they're not in the definition of a state. Secondly, most of the speech on these platforms is regulated by their own terms of contract, which is to say that because it's a private agreement that you enter into when you sign up in either of these services, you abide to be bound by their own terms of hate speech regulation. Now, the problem, and this is something that's become interestingly complex in the US, is that the left, the political left and the political right, both of them are hounding the big tech, but for different reasons. The political left is saying that the big tech isn't regulating hate speech enough, but the political right in the US is saying that the US is exercising more editorial discretion than is, say, permitted by the constitution, etc. So to me, to apply, to juxtapose this dilemma in India, I think the IT rules are really exemplary of this dilemma, which is to say, how do we make sure that we make a safe space for people online, but also make sure that we don't give away our right to freedom of speech. So I think the kind of solution, the approximation of a solution that I can think of right now is to first understand, and not through just constitutional protections, but a civil society understanding of what are the kind of speech that we clearly think should not be allowed online. And I think that the first step towards that is to understand what qualifies as freedom of speech in the first place. I'd love anyone, if they want to offer their comments and thoughts.
Divyanshu, right? Yeah, Divyanshu, I agree with everything that you've said, and both the examples that you've given are very apt. But how do you think that the understanding of what is hate speech and how it has its very sleeky variations can be executed?
Yeah, so I think that there's two main kind of schools of thought that exist here. One is the libertarian school of thought that says that actually nothing is hate speech because the right to freedom of speech is absolute. And the other one is, I think, more something that say what is conventionally recognized as the political left, or like anyone who basically is a little left to the political center, which says that hate speech is a legitimate problem. There are certain kind of speech that delegitimize the identity of people, and we cannot permit that to happen in a civil society. Now, the reason why I think no democracy has ever been able to solve for this is because I don't think this is an easy problem to solve, to say the least. I think what the social media platforms are doing on their own is something that is sufficient, but not a solution in totality. Because I think as you were mentioning, Vikram faced a lot of or for that matter, a lot of people who subscribe to queer identity, and of course, women face massive discrimination, harassment online every day. To understand and to make sure that all of this kind of content is not only regulated within, say, criminal provisions, which is, say, within the Indian Penal Code, but also is encoded within the platform's own terms and regulations. There's something that they won't let happen, is something that's really important, because the number one complaint of most lawmakers or civil society from these platforms is they are not vigilant enough. And I think that in itself is a very difficult problem, because look at the scale of users. The number one problem that Twitter was saying that they're coming up in terms of complying with IT rules was that they just don't have enough people to look after every grievance, to look after every violation. So of course, as I think Vasu was saying, like all social media platforms want to achieve scale. But now that they've achieved scale, they're battling with the problem of how to deal with the scale. So I think I'm sure I won't be able to come up with a solution that's implementable right in half an hour. But I think that we can still come up with principles that we can use to solve for this.
We do have, at least in theory or at least on paper, things such as reasonable restrictions. So the moment where freedom of expression and speech turns into hate speech is when you forget that reasonable restrictions exist, and that your liberty to speak should not be at the expense of someone else's identity, or trauma, or their life itself. So my solution, like I did mention in my speech, is that including, like, I agree with everything that you've said so far, but what I cannot stop thinking is that all of these solutions start on the social media site itself. Like, there is nothing beyond the social media site. We, the users, we, the people of the social media, need to understand that everything that we are talking about is on the settings section, is on the block section, is in the restrict that account section. Have we ever taken a step back and thought that if this person was maybe taught that you just cannot come up to a person and say, hey, if you identify yourself as a lesbian, can you just share your nudes with me from a certain caste? You shouldn't be here in the first place. The responsibility of educating ourselves, and as much as I don't like to use the phrase educate yourself, but educating yourself, because these are the bare minimum qualifications of being a decent person, is that we actually do need to educate ourselves. And if we cannot do that, if we think that it's too late to change the adults around us, we can definitely teach our children that there is a thing called social media and you will be inevitably influenced by it. But what I do expect and hope is that you come up to me and talk about things, and you come up to me and say that, is it okay if I treat this person like this? Is it fine? Do I even think about a person in such a manner? So I think schools play a very important role. Everything I know comes from school, or everything I know comes from social media, or the n number of accounts on Instagram or Twitter that are doing a phenomenal job when it comes to teaching us about the basics of gender diversity, or the rigorous and the regressive but age-old sexism that pertains to the society. So if these simple solutions can be included in the school syllabus, such as and the reason why I brought out about Vikram Aditya Sahai is that they actually did write a training manual for teachers and educators that said gender diversity, gender non-conformity, and transgender at the center stage. This was supposed to be a manual as a part of the NCRT books, but a lot of people did not like it, which means that when a lot of individuals do not agree with such a change, it means we are taking a right step. We are challenging the comfort and the norms. So for me, education has always been very important in every aspect, and introducing what is social media in computer science or information technology can be a first step. Teaching children that what is bullying, what is hate crime, what is a part of a hate speech at the age of, let's say, grade 7 to grade 9, and then talking about solutions and how can you deal with it from grade 9 to 12 can be a great step, because a lot of these children do come across social media at such a young age. And I look at my sister who's in grade 7, but she uses YouTube and she uses Zoom and whatnot. She uses Pinterest to interact, to make up for the lack of school in her life as of now. So according to me, education and introducing and talking about social media could be a great step beyond all of us.
Yeah, really, I'm satisfied with that thoughts. At the age of, from the age of students of education, I think nowadays everyone, little child, are also knowing about the social medias. So at their education level, we have to create a awareness about these sites and all to avoid the such crimes in existing in our through the sites. So she tells it clearly. I am also satisfied with her thoughts by giving education about this social media sites and what's the importance, etc., to the students at their early age itself. Then we can totally avoid this type of crimes and strangers nowadays doing hacking, etc., through these social medias, vulgarly and etc. Through the social media. So I think that nowadays all the students have a general idea about these all social media sites, etc. Then is using, etc. But they are unaware of these using these sites in a proper way. So it become unsafe. So making, giving awareness or making them aware about these platform, it will be very
Okay, I think we've lost Amrita. Vasu or Divyanshul, would you like to make any concluding remarks since we are running out of time?
Yeah, so just to conclude, I completely agree with the fact that there is a certain amount of user responsibility as well, and that we have to, because they're exposed to social media at such a young age, we have to teach them young as well. That being said, I think there's an equally, if not more important role for the platforms in of themselves to play, because as of right now, it's really not a fair fight. User empowerment does have a very important role, but platforms are way more powerful than that. And so they have to subscribe to a certain amount of ethics, and they have to change the way their business model works, in my opinion, for this to really succeed. I think Akansha, yeah, go ahead.
I agree with one point that you said, that platforms are stronger. Platforms are stronger because of the users. Facebook had a lot of command on the metaverse because, or the whole business of social media, because of the population that was active on it. So to disqualify the user dynamic and the power we hold over the social media platform, I think is a tad bit unfair. However, I do agree with all of your points about the business that goes on behind this. But let's not forget that it is us who make the platform strong.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Actually, it is us who make the platform strong, but I was talking more from an individual point of view, more than a collective. But I do agree with that macro point.
All right.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. So yeah, I get your point.
Okay, Divyanshu, you have anything to say? Otherwise, we can conclude.
Yeah, I'll just, I think, conclude with the maxim that regulation of big tech is something that needs to come about while understanding the countervailing interests on both the sides. We also need to make sure that commercial interests of platforms are not something that are arbitrarily trampled upon, but also need to make sure that the user's civic rights on those platforms are also not sacrificed at the altar of capitalism.
Yeah. All right. So to tie together, you can see that Vasu here says that the companies must take bigger responsibility, because at the end of the day, there is that capitalistic greed, they do want to become huge, they want to make more money, tap more markets. So somewhere they have to be reined in, is what he feels. Whereas Akanksha and we have Divyanshu also saying that user responsibility is also high. The users are the ones who are exploiting it also, and they are also using it. So somewhere awareness has to come from at a young age, and given that children are exposed to social media these days, that perhaps we could introduce, say, media literacy or digital literacy courses at the school level, where they are aware of the kind of content that they put up and what the effect that it can have on others. And that there is a thin line between your freedom of speech and the freedom of another person, right? And I think Amrita was also agreeing with that. And Divyanshu feels that yes, companies have to be reined in, and it is not impossible to have moderators. We normally, for Facebook and all that, we have moderators who moderate the content and pull it down. But for the amount of users that we have today, it is virtually impossible to moderate every single content. And even if we do moderate, then there is an issue of censorship that comes in. Is it right to moderate? Isn't it freedom of speech? I mean, the internet does give us a sense of anonymity, things that we probably do not say to a person directly. We feel more confident of saying it online because we are hidden behind a screen. So he says that it's a very fine path, that you have to tread both. So yeah, so now let's hear from the judges. I would like to invite the judges to pose their questions to the individual participants. Anybody would?
Well, Srijan here, I can ask Akamsha.
Yes.
So, hi Akamsha. So my question is, do you think legacy media has an active role to play in regulating and reforming social media? If yes, how? If no, why?
Sir, I'm so sorry, I couldn't catch your voice clearly. It's very low. Could you please repeat your question a little louder?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. It's better now.
Okay. So, do you think legacy media has an active role to reform social media? If yes, how? If no, why? By legacy media, I mean conventional media like print, television channels.
Okay. So this is a question. The answer that I'm about to give you was a part of many discussions in my journalism class, that nowadays the state of journalism, which is the fourth pillar of our Indian democracy, is in shambles. It is saddening. It is disheartening to look at. But print media, I think, print media as well as broadcast media, I think, are the medium of communication that every person can understand, such as a person may or may not use social media, but television, radio, or newspapers are an integral part of every person, I think, from the primary sector to the business tycoons. So legacy media does directly shape social media and journalism in that manner, because the lack of accuracy, the lack of credibility, the lack of brevity in our legacy media is channeled through citizen journalism, is channeled to explanatory journalism through platforms such as Al Jazeera or the Vox media network. So these network sites or these communication networks have increased the clarity of communication and also diluted the state of journalism. And I think because when citizens take things in their own hands, such as the daily updates we see from Palestine or Al Jeddah, the demolishing, the bombing, that everything, that the everyday that happens in these Gulf countries, they come through Twitter, they come through Instagram handles of citizens, of people who are not journalists. So the legacy media has failed and is unable to create that platform of communication. But at the same time, when citizens have the ability to post a lot of content, such as that is related to journalism, I think it is manipulated to an ideology and to a personality of a person, rather than the crux of journalism, that is just neutral and honest facts and reporting. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may, my question to Divyanshu. So during your presentation and after you in the debates, you both observed that regulation of social media is important, but at the same time there is problematic governmental action. With that in mind, and it goes without saying that law is both shaping and shaped by society and by the evolution in society, I would like to ask you, how do you think that should be law's posture towards social media and internet in general? Do you think it should have a more proactive profile or a more reactive profile, in the sense of providing remedies or providing initial methods of shaping social media and internet in general? Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Lucas, if I might call you by name. I think that I have two major points as an answer. One is that I do think that it's tried to say, but I think it's got to be a mixture of both proactive and reactive. And the reason I say for that is because specifically the history of Indian law specifically, and in the intersection of regulation and social media in India, has been one in which India has mostly been proactive in regulating social media, which is to say that a lot of laws that are made to regulate, not just social media, a lot of practices, a lot of companies, a lot of commercial activities, they more often than not cast a very wide net in which a lot of people who shouldn't ideally be caught into that net come about. Which is to say, the reason why I, for example, cited the landmark case of Shreya Singhal versus Union of India was because the petitioners had merely commented on the death of a very prominent politician by saying that a lot of ruckus has been created, is it legitimate or not? And that had become the criminal complaint in that case itself. Which is to say that if we go for a proactive kind of approach in social media regulation, it is very, very likely that we make that we lessen the scope with which people use social media. Which is to say, the reason why it is integral to today's generation is because of the freedom that it affords today's generation. Which is to say, I can host podcasts, I can talk to people via Zoom, I can post whatever I want on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, of course, within the legal limit. I think that if we have more and more regulation, if we have more and more laws in terms of you can do this and you can't do that, you cannot do that, is problematic because of two reasons. Number one is that you cannot pre-facto always, to a precise degree, make sure that you already know what is legal and illegal, because there's always going to be things that are going to be in the gray area. And I think that if you try to encode everything that's more likely to lead to a worse outcome, because I think that over-regulation is something that is obviously not the solution. Now, the reason why I kind of tilt more towards remedial form of legal system is because I think that remedies, because they're more likely to be grounded in law, which is to say that if this offense has happened, you give me the evidence for it, you make arguments for why you think that this was not the case or why this was the case. I think our courts are better handled to make that adjudication. Because I mean, I think I just like to use the example of Section 69 itself, right? It's a proactive measurement, except the court systems are wholly bypassed, which is to say it's the executive that makes that decision whether this content should be taken down or not, versus a kind of remedial form of law in which, for example, any kind of claim of violation of freedom of speech, which is Article 19(1)(a), that goes to an adjudicatory forum, which is either, say, high courts or Supreme Courts, in which a proper due process is observed, and then a result is given and an order is passed in terms of whether a right was violated or not. So I think that even though it has to be a mixture of both proactive and reactive remedies, I would still incline more towards remedial, because I think that they're more likely to be grounded well in law and also afford due process. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, Ms. Lata, if you have a question for Amrita.
Yeah, I have a question. Hi, Amrita. Social media in itself is a technology platform that's present in all our lives. In light of other prominent technologies like advancements like artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT, robotic process automation, how do you see this platform evolving, particularly from a safety point of view?
Yeah, ma'am, sure. In this evolving technology across the social media, it plays a major role. When we consider this artificial intelligence or blockchain or augmented reality, etc., it plays a major role. A great advance is nowadays in this field. So technology plays major role in this involvement of various sites, etc. I think that nowadays in all profession, in all sides, it plays a major technological rise and development. So when we consider the social media, the growth of technology is a major role. Yes, past years.
Thanks, Amrita.
Thank you. Hema, if you would like to ask your question.
Apologies, I think I was on mute. Hi, Vasu. My question is for you. I like your solution where you suggested that changing business models could be sort of a potential way for large companies to make social media a safe space. But having heard your fellow debaters, what would you say is sort of the next best hybrid solution? Because changing business models also sort of puts the onus squarely on large conglomerates to self-regulate. But for example, your fellow contestants have suggested education as a way of doing it, legislation as a way of doing it. What alongside changing business models would you say is a hybrid solution to making social media safer?
Okay, so if the onus was taken off of conglomerates to help this situation, then I would lean towards both of those solutions. Actually, I think they both have to happen together as well, in terms of legal regulation and user empowerment, because the user can empower itself, but that's a very long-term process. It has to take a lot of education and a lot of understanding about social media algorithms that not even a lot of experts today have, to try and get around this particular system that has been created. That being said, regulation is I think in the short term more important, because it takes a long time for user empowerment to kick in, and till that time, to square out this particular position and to help users maintain a healthy lifestyle, regulation is important. Now, I do agree with Divyanshu's point about a lot of the regulation points he made, especially about it being remedial. And so, yeah, I think those two are the most important ones. Other than that, I think, again, I'm going to have to come to what the companies will do. In terms of, if they're not shifting business models, at least some algorithm transparency, how they collect data and how they use that data, transparency, how they share it with the third parties. A lot of that needs to happen for the user to be able to take control, especially until that user empowerment point kicks in.
All right, thank you.
Right, thank you. Can we have Hamida to pose questions? I think Hamida can pose questions to all the 4 participants. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. I love the debate. I'll start with Vasu. I was very interested in what you said about goodwill, and I think someone else also mentioned it. I'm interested in how, like, I know we've talked about the hybrid and you've talked about the split model. However, I was wondering, like, have you had any thoughts of how can we combine goodwill with commerce? Because somehow we have this thought process where commerce is different than life, whereas commerce is actually a part of life. So, like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, so I think the way for these companies to get goodwill right now, that is to say that is to get people to think good about them, and for regulatory authorities to to be on the same side essentially as the people, is for them to stop taking advantage of the situation that they've put their users in. Essentially, that's the situation that's been created. Is, as a user right now, I don't have any control over which advertisements I see, how I'm how I'm essentially impressed, and what happens behind the scenes. It's completely opaque and I can't see what's happening, which that's not a good position to be in. And now that we're understanding that we're in this position, for the companies to have any sort of goodwill, they have to take certain steps to make us to make that screen like a little less than opaque, if not completely transparent because of competitive edges and stuff like that, at least a little less than opaque, so that we can see what's happening and then we can make an informed choice. I think the shifting of business models does that, essentially just gives the people the choice, because that's what's important. Their original goal was to connect people and to provide a platform, which is a holistically important goal. But they've gone away from this because they've provided a platform where the more engaged we get, the more money they get. So obviously, it's whether ethically or unethically, they want to keep us engaged. If this incentive is taken away, then the choice is given back to us. And after that, if I spend 9 hours a day on social media platforms, then it's my choice. It's something that I'm doing, and that's completely okay.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm hearing is you're saying good, like transparency will basically get us towards that point of
absolutely. Yeah.
balance. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for that. Divyanshu, you're next. Basically, I was very interested in what you said about the laws need to change. And I was interested in hearing from you about, so often when we talk about laws, obviously we know there's a social angle. So if you remember Jyoti's statement from Justice Verma, I think, he had a long preamble on how we need to change the social side of things, etc. So I was interested to hear from you, like, how do we bridge the legal and social gap in this case? And I know, like, I think online the challenges are that it's anonymous, whereas a lot, like in life, we can see, but probably that challenge you have more thoughts on. So I would be interested to hear that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. I'll just actually I just want to address the first question asked Vasu, because I think that's a really interesting question, because something that I also think about, which is how do we align the profit motive of these companies with just a general user experience. And I think that, like, to build on Vasu's answer, which he also pointed out, like, You just need to work for your users. I think that, which is to say that the reason why Facebook, for example, has been getting a lot of heat is because a lot of its internal products are not working for the users, which is to say, to lie to the users about the privacy that they grant them, to lie to them about the advertisement deals that they have. So I think, like, shortly to answer your question, which I think you were very right in pointing out how we look at like commerce as something that is different from life. I think that the idea for any kind of social media platform is to always make sure and remember that you're working for the user, and the only way you can scale up, you can build better companies, to always make sure that you don't lie to your users and you work for them. To come to your question with respect to how do we bridge the gap between the legal and the social part of it, this is an interesting question, because I'm sure you've heard of the legal stalwart Flavia Agnes, who's worked for women issues so much. This is something that she talks about a lot, which is that we look at law, especially like laws related to women, and the kind of incidents that happen to women in a very kind of isolated manner, which is to say that this happens in a faraway land like our society, or the others, for example, the housing society that I live in, will not, that these things might not happen. So you're very right in saying that the way we look at law as something alien, as something that has nothing to do with how we conduct our day-to-day self, is very pertinent. Now, of course, I can't give you a solution, which is a one-stop solution to do that. But I think that what should really need to happen is the cognizance of the fact that law is not alien. Law is something that, like ancient, to understand how law came about, law was nothing but codification of customs, of practices. To understand that a lot of what we call as law and like disregard as something that I don't want to concern myself with, because only the lawyers will do that. I think the idea is, I think something that Akanksha said very pertinently, that you need to educate the people. You need to make them aware that your rights are not something that are alien to you. And this is something that I really like to say, is that Indians don't think in the vocabulary of rights. We like to think about our duties, and a lot of politicians remind us of our duties towards the nation, which is also right. But I think that Indians need to be like, we're very, very behind in terms of being cognizant and in terms of thinking about our rights. So I think that the solution to that is education, firstly, to spread awareness, and also understand that law is to empower us and not to as an alien tool.
Yeah, thank you for that. Amrita, I will ask you. So I have noticed, and this is a very personal question because you're a technology person, I've noticed that the algorithms that work on the internet can be very, very tech-based from the male perspective. And I'm a movie buff, so I've noticed that some of the women-centric films which actually empower women, their ratings on IMDb are very, very less, whereas some of the male-centric movies have very, very high ratings. Now, do you have any thoughts on the algorithm? Do you think it's the text, or do you think it is just the user who and for example, like a movie like Thappad that came last year, or the year before, I think the next day the ratings were like literally nothing. So I was very, very curious. And then Kabir Singh had like 8 ratings. Now, of course, it has changed, but initially when they released. So I'm very interested to hear in algorithms and what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, ma'am. In this technological view, it plays a major role, I think so, nowadays. It creates a major involvement in the past few years. So I think that widely spreading adopted technologies across our times will focus on this women empowerment also. Nowadays, all are very educated women are coming nowadays, leading empowerment nowadays. So I think that it's a large empowerment for this women in the field of science and also about technology. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Last question is for Akanksha. Akanksha, you said some very interesting things, about bullying and all of those things, the hate speech, sexism, and kind of empowering people with that information. But as we know, like, and as I said to Divyanshu as well, like, that bridging that legal and social gap can be huge. And there's a lot of disinhibition effect, and I'm not too sure whether everyone is aware of it, but the disinhibition effect happens more on social media, in the sense that things that you can, I think Shakti briefly touched upon that, things that you can say to people in real life, like are probably less, but on social media you can be like really blah, like with all your emotions, and it comes out very, very interesting. But I was just interested to hear from you, like in terms of the like sort of, question here also is, I guess what we see online mirrors what we see in the real world as well, right? So it's kind of the same. Now I know education is important, and I guess we are putting the onus on people to sort of be responsible for what they say and they do not say. But I guess, how do we create that, like in your mind, like online, how do we create the safe space same as we would in for example real life? Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. Ma'am, so there's a theory of constructivism that says learning happens when people go through exploration and experience.
Yeah.
So this theory, alongside the theory of diffusion of innovation, which means that people can be divided into categories and how they are ready to adapt to a rule or a new change on social media, especially on the internet. I think these two theories are a key point in understanding how, when the community guidelines were introduced on Instagram, and because I use only Instagram and not Twitter and any other social media platform, so I would take that as an example. When the community guidelines were introduced on that site, there was a shift in the way people were protesting how their the certain dialect, the certain slurs, or the certain words they were very familiar with using were being taken away, and how these community guidelines are responsible of taking down your posts or your stories, or your interaction has changed a lot. So like Divyanshu said, that we focus a lot on our duties and how politics is also focused on what are our duties and not our rights. I disagree with that, because the environment that I come from and the interactions I have on a daily basis, we talk about this is my right, I need this is my right, and I will do this. But there is seldom there is the discussion of what is my duty towards other person, what is my duty as a person, is seldom talked about. So I think on social media, community guidelines or reasonable restrictions do decrease the gap between the kind of two dimensions that we live in. So as you pointed out correctly, that our virtual presence is a reflection of our personal and human environment. So the introduction of community guidelines, the introduction of the phenomenon, and I feel bad to call it a phenomenon, but adding our pronouns on our bios, that hey, I am he, him, hey, I am she, they, do refer me as these nouns, and the stories that we put on about what is happening, things that you should talk about. So in the morning, today morning itself, I see two of my friends putting up a story talking about heightism and how that heightism affects men and their psychology. So I don't think we have to create a solution to wage that gap, because it is already there. We just need to perfect it a little bit and include and spread it to greater institutions, because we have the solution with our hands. It's very simple. We just need to execute it properly.
Okay, thank you, judges, and thank you, participants also. I think essentially the debate has been about two things. Is it user responsibility, or is it the responsibility of the conglomerates? And I don't think we can arrive at a black or white solution. It somewhere lies in between. I think there is the balance that we need to strike. Thank you, all of you. I think over to Nidhi.
Thank you, everyone. That was an absolutely insightful debate. We are extremely heartened to see how the participants have internalized the topic, the issue, and brought in their unique perspectives. Thank you also to the wonderful judges and their very pointed questions that did make the participants push their imaginations a bit more further. And thank you, Shakti, for moderating that all too well. So we're slightly ahead of our, not ahead, a little late on our schedule. So we will take a small break now and let's come back after 15 minutes. So that should be around 12:35, less than 15 minutes. Let the judges and everybody else also get a break, and we'll tally the scores and get to the winner announcement soon after. See you at 12:35.
My name is Akanksha Lakshman Biradar from Mount Carmel College, Bangalore.
I am Divyanshu Demi, student at Jindal Global Law School.
I am Amrita G.S. from Trinity College of Engineering, Trivandrum.
My name is Vasu and I study in Christ University.
Social media has the power to connect our voice to the rest of the world as we speak. What is good in this? How much is good? How can we make this effective yet safe? Citizen Digital Foundation Youth Dialogue Forum has chosen a very impactful topic, and what better format than a debate format to discuss the pros and cons. And who else other than the youth themselves who have mastered the art of social media. Glad to be part of this debating session as a jury member, and I wish the participants and the organizers the very best. Looking forward to a very interesting debate.
I see the CDF initiative as an amazing opportunity for Indian students to engage in cross-disciplinary and solution-driven debates, which ultimately replicates the biggest challenges that we as a global society face daily. Real-world problem solving is not about winning, but rather just opposing different, often conflicting perspectives and collectively building the best possible solution. This is what I, as a jury, expect to watch during the debate.
Hi everyone. I created my first Hotmail account in the mid-90s, I think, as far as I can remember. So that should tell you which generation I'm from. Coming back to the debate, I'm really looking forward to what you all have to say and how you experience social media and what are your perspectives. I, of course, use it very extensively, but it's very interesting to see and hear from you because obviously your perspectives will be different. So I'm really looking forward to learning, and thank you so much for having me.
My name is Akanksha Lakshman Biradar from Mount Carmel College, Bangalore.
I am Divyanshu Demi, student at Jindal Global Law School.
I am Amrita GS from Trinity College of Engineering, Trivandrum.
My name is Vasu and I study in Christ University.
Social media has the power to connect our voice to the rest of the world as we speak. What is good in this? How much is good? How can we make this effective yet safe? Citizen Digital Foundation Youth Dialogue Forum has chosen a very impactful topic, and what better format than a debate format to discuss the pros and cons. And who else other than the youth themselves who have mastered the art of social media. Glad to be part of this debating session as a jury member, and I wish the participants and the organizers the very best. Looking forward to a very interesting debate.
I see the CDF initiative as an amazing opportunity for Indian students to engage in cross-disciplinary and solution-driven debates, which ultimately replicates the biggest challenges that we as a global society face daily. Real-world problem solving is not about winning, but rather just opposing different, often conflicting perspectives and collectively building the best possible solution. This is what I, as a jury, expect to watch during the debate.
Hi everyone. I created my first Hotmail account in the mid-90s, I think, as far as I can remember. So that should tell you which generation I'm from. Coming back to the debate, I'm really looking forward to what you all have to say and how you experience social media and what are your perspectives. I, of course, use it very extensively, but it's very interesting to see and hear from you because obviously your perspectives will be different. So I'm really looking forward to learning, and thank you so much for having me.
My name is Akanksha Lakshman Biradar from Mount Carmel College, Bangalore.
I am Divyanshu Demi, student at Jindal Global Law School.
I am Amrita G from Trinity College of Engineering, Trivandrum.
My name is Vasu and I study in Christ University.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So before we get into the winner announcement, may I ask the jury to say a few words? Should we start with Lucas? Lucas, if you're ready, we'd like to hear your thoughts.
Thanks, Nidhi. I'll try to make this quick because we are kind of like behind schedule. But first, thanks for CDF for organizing this event. I'm pretty sure it will be a first of many. Thanks for my fellow jury members for being here and all the participants, of course, and also our keynote speakers. First of all, I would like to simply congratulate our participants because it's not easy to get out of our comfort zone and debate with people that are not necessarily integrated in the same background and does not always have the same premises that we do. And I say that simply because we are having a debate between people from different courses in college, in university. So it's not really easy to convey the message and getting rid of all the jargons and the things that people around you normally understand when you are in your own environment. So for that, congratulations. And second thing, I would like just to bring the attention not only of the participants, but for all of us, to one thing that actually occurred to me during the debates, which I believe it's a big wake-up call for all of us. We are talking about internet, we're talking about social media, we are talking about comfort zone, and we are talking about debate, these aspects. And during the debate today, we had this for a moment, two notions of one word that could lead this debate to two different directions, and it's the word safe. The idea of a safe social media. It could be obviously, as we focus during this debate, a safe emotional space. But it could also be a safe material space, as at some point it was pointed out by one of the participants. And I think that's important because even amongst us, we were almost everyone focused on one side, and we almost forgot that there is another side that is possible, and a lot of people could, depending on their background, could see this other aspect of the reality. So I would just like to leave this as a provocation of actually how difficult it is to engage in real world in these debates, and how difficult it is to come up with solutions and conclusions. And with that, congratulations for CDF for organizing, and congratulations for the participants for bringing in your ideas and debating. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucas. May I ask Lata to now share a few thoughts?
Thank you, Nidhi. And First of all, yes, congratulations, Citizen Digital Foundation, for organizing this vibrant debating forum and to discuss one of the most needed topic. And more congratulations for the purpose and objective you're standing up for, which Videsh explained. And to Divyanshu, Amrita, Akansha and Vasu. To be frank, it was extremely great listening to you. Very, very meaningful thoughts. And what was more impressive was to understand that the younger generation like you have a very deep understanding on the whats and whatnots of social media. Being a technologist, I have to talk about the topic. Like we treat information and data as power. And when power or data is disclosed in a wrong way or to a wrong person, that can pose threats. That's why technology play a whole lot of role in protecting that. So in the cyber world, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data, when it is stored, processed, transmitted, has to be bounded by safety and security policies. And this media being so powerful, I think it is also quite important. We talked about policies, we talked about technology and education, a whole lot, which is very, very needed. I think the overarching principle also is about how we as consumers exercise a discipline while using this very powerful media. I have to conclude by saying, when we say let's all stay safe, let's all stay safe online. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lata. May I now invite Srijan to share his thoughts?
Hello. I was disconnected for a while. Sorry for that. So while I was listening to the debate here this morning, so what has come to my mind is a famous quote on debate by legendary social reformer Sri Narayana Guru of my part of the world, Kerala. So once Narayana Guru was asked, what is the purpose of a debate? So then his answer was, a debate is something that should illuminate your knowledge and help you to share your knowledge with others, not the other way. Like you cannot dispute and defeat anyone. That is not the purpose of a debate. A debate should be to help you to expand the horizon of your knowledge and perspective. See, our debate that just concluded here was exactly in that manner. So if you analyze, you will be missing the fire that we have been used to see in television screen at 9 p.m. So, but that is okay for me. All of the participants have engaged very well, and they have shared their thoughts and perspective in a very engaging manner. So I'm happy for that. So it was pretty difficult to judge also, I must say, because all of you performed very well. But as you know, when it is a contest and competition, somebody has to be ranked based on the metrics given to us. So treat the result in that way only. And as one of the participants said here, we cannot solve all these issues in a half an hour session or 1 hour session. But the efforts we have launched here is very, very commendable. And I'm very happy to be part of this opportunity. And I thank Citizen Digital Foundation for organizing this event and inviting me also. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Srijan. Thank you for those words. Hamida, would you be ready to speak next?
Yeah, sure. I must say I'm really, really heartened by what I heard today from all of you. And, you know, there's been always, the last few years have been very difficult for me, like in terms of India and how things have changed. And being in Sydney, I always think like, you know, should I come back to India? Should I not come back to India? And I must say that my decision has been made a little more easier by hearing all of you. And just to hear the fact that, you know, you all have a great depth of knowledge and also you're backing it up with, you know, data as well, and which I think is so valuable for us to have that balance between our emotion and bleeding hearts, and then, but also, you know, depending on data to kind of making our way to the future. So thank you all so much. And it was wonderful to also hear from everyone else. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Hamida. Hema, last but not the least, please do share your thoughts.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this very vibrant debate, and which it was everything that we hoped it would be. It showed plenty of evidence of critical thinking. There were evidence-based solutions. There was proactive listening from all the participants, and collaborative problem solving. And this is exactly what we had hoped for when we sort of came up with this idea of the Youth Dialogue Forum. And the quality of the discourse today tells us that we're on to something, that I guess engaging with younger people and sort of getting them to talk to each other and also listening to them is sort of the way forward. And like Divyanshu, I think, pointed out that this is not something where we can come up with anything tangible in a span of half an hour or an hour. But I think just the fact that we have started a conversation, and it has been a nuanced, rich discussion, and I think that just gives me a lot of hope. So congratulations to all the participants, and thank you for being here today. And thank you to all the judges and keynote speakers for their valuable time.
Sorry, can I just add that this is a wonderful idea that you guys came up with, citizen guys. So I'm just like really, really thank you for that as well. Forgot to say that before. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Hema. Thank you very much, everyone, for sticking with us for the entire course of the debate. We're just totaling up the scores. We're on the last set. So please bear with us. Give us a moment more and we'll be announcing the winners soon.
Hi, thank you very much, everyone. It was wonderful to see the young India coming up with a lot of fresh ideas and better solutions, just as our YDF slogan sounds like. Looking forward to connect with you all very often, and we'll definitely want to take this dialogue forward. Thank you.
So we have a team of fervent fire ants working behind the scenes to bring this show to fruition. We have somebody with us from Ahmedabad. His name is Ash Gopalani. He's right now based in Bombay. He is working behind the scenes. He's also product consultant with Citizen Digital Foundation. We have our very, very busy fire ant, Meghna Nair, who's been the force behind putting this event up in terms of coordination, in terms of putting the collaterals up, creating the designs. So there's a huge round of applause from our side to her, and we're really grateful to her. All of you know her personally as well. So that's great. So she and Ash are on the score counting right now, and she'll be passing it on to Shakti, who will then be announcing the winners. In the meantime, could we hear from the participants as to what your thoughts are? How do you feel? For some of you, it must have been a new experience. For some of you, this has been something that you're familiar with. Akansha, do you want to start?
I think this conversation about social media and whether or not there will be a safe space is a lengthy one. We may never come to a conclusion because it just doesn't stay the same. But discussing how we think things can change and how, in our perspective, social media is conceived and how is it important to us is, I think, always an interactive session. I've always liked listening to what people have to say about their profiles, the profiles they like. So it's the everyday bits and pieces that I really enjoy. We may not come to a conclusion very quickly because it's a difficult topic, but I enjoy talking like this. I really enjoyed the interaction, especially from people of the industry who have had a long experience in fields that I cannot comprehend. The experiences that you have in your feedback it's extremely valuable to me. So this morning is I think a great one. This is a nice way to start the weekend amidst the pandemic especially. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Amrita, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, really. I am also first experience constructive debate, really a nice one, and I am also feeling very blessed to attend this debate with these three elegant students of our age. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Vasu, any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. To begin with, this is my first debate, and I really didn't think this is how debates go. But now I'm a fan of debates, so that's cool. I really had fun interacting with people I didn't know. I would have never even gotten to know them because, I'm from a different field and stuff like that. And so a lot of different opinions, and I think that's really cool. I had a really fun time, and yeah, that's all.
Thanks. Divyanshu, any thoughts?
Nothing much, but just saying what Vasu said. I think talking to a lot of different people is really cool, especially because I think law is one of those fields when you get into it, like you don't really talk to a lot of other disciplines, and especially because it's all online right now. So it was really fun to hear other people's opinions and specifically from how they look at the world. And I always appreciate trying to inform my opinion from lenses that I don't usually have. So it was a great experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Divyanshu. Shakti, are we ready with the scores? Do you want to take over?
Yes, thank you, Nidhi. So so we come to the conclusion of the debate. I'm sure you all are waiting and hungry as well. So I won't take long. So the first place goes to Divyanshu. Congratulations. Second place goes to Vasu. The third place goes to Akanksha. And the fourth place goes to Amrita.
Thank you very much for the announcement, Shakti, and for all of you to have spared your time and for also putting up with a few technical glitches today, which is, I think, part and parcel of all our virtual lives now. So we'll be contacting the winners individually to share the prize details with them. I will now pass on the baton to Meghna Nair to give us a quick vote of thanks. She's the face that needs to be acknowledged for all the work as well. Meghna, could you?
Hi, hello. Let me just share my screen. Yes. So, and with that, we have come to the end of a successful pilot edition of CDF Youth Dialogue Forum. Congratulations to all the winners. I'd like to take this opportunity to extend a heartfelt thank you to our esteemed keynote speakers, Dr. Arun Surendran and Ms. Wong Lai Cheng, for your valuable insights that added meaning to our first CDF Youth Dialogue Forum. A special thanks to our jury members, Mr. Lucas Kayado, Ms. Lata Nair, Mr. Srijan Balakrishnan, Ms. Hamida Parker, and Ms. Hema Ramaprasad. Your work judging our bright participants and their arguments today sure was not easy. Our moderator, Ms. Shakti Swaminathan, also had a demanding, albeit exciting task today. Thank you for ensuring a smooth and constructive exchange, Ms. Shakti. As a token of appreciation for your work, we are happy to mail you digital thank you vouchers made possible by Federal Bank. I'd now like to extend a huge thanks to Dr. Syed Ibrahim, Honorary Consul of Germany to Kerala and Director, Goethe Zentrum, Trivandrum, for extending presenting partnership to the event. Sincere thanks also to Ms. Divya MJ of Federal Bank and Mr. Sandeep Jayachandran of AD&S Business Consultants for their support towards making CDF Youth Dialogue Forum possible. Our participants are Kanksha Biradar, Divyanshu Dembi, Amrita GS, and Vasu Mathur deserve a big round of applause for their hard work and performance today. It would have been organically done, but if this was a physical event, but here's putting our hands together for each one of you. Thank you to everyone who tuned into the event today from various parts of the world. I would also like to thank everyone who worked behind the scenes to pull off the very first Youth Dialogue Forum by Citizen Digital Foundation. Thank you to Ms. Hema Ramaprasad for coordinating with the jury and creating the press kit for the event. Thank you to Mr. Ash Gopalani for creating the social media calendar and helping with tech setup. A big thank you to the event people and Mr. Surji Esai for helping us with the technical aspects of this event. I'd also like to thank Star Communications for the promotional video and venue support, and Manat Soni Srivastava for creating the promo structure. We hope you enjoyed Citizen Digital Foundation Presents Youth Dialogue Forum. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh. Okay. We'll connect after this. Hi.
We are live.